Have you ever wondered what you're made of? Not in the poetic sense, but in the quiet, literal, astonishing way. Every breath, every blink, every heartbeat is the result of an orchestra so intricate, so well-timed, that even the most advanced computers struggle to imitate it. And yet, you don't have to think about it. Your body simply knows. It's strange, isn't it? That the most complex machine in the known universe is the one that tucks itself under your skin. The word anatomy comes from the Greek anatom, which means to cut open. It's the science of structure, the study of how living things are built and how all the parts fit together. But tonight, we'll do no cutting. We'll explore gently, as if the body were a cathedral of living light, and we are quiet visitors walking its corridors. Anatomy is not just a map of muscles and bones. It's the story of cooperation, of trillions of living cells, each doing its part like citizens in an enormous, silent city. Let's start small. Smaller than you can see. If you were to look at your fingertip through a powerful microscope, you wouldn't see skin. You'd see a bustling world of cells, tiny, gelatinous chambers, each one alive, each one working. A human body contains roughly 37 trillion of them. That number is almost impossible to grasp. If every cell were the size of a grain of sand, you could build a beach that stretches across continents. And yet, they all fit inside you. A cell is the basic unit of life, a microscopic bubble made of membranes filled with water, proteins, fats, and tiny organelles that act like miniature machines. Each cell is self-sufficient, but also deeply dependent on its neighbors. No cell survives alone. In a way, you are not a single being. You are a colony, a symphony of cooperation, playing quietly beneath your awareness. Inside each cell lies the nucleus, the command center. Here, DNA, the long molecule of heredity, rests coiled like a library of blueprints. Every instruction for building and maintaining you is written there in a language of 4 simple letters: A, T, C, and G. It's remarkable, really. 4 symbols, repeated in endless patterns, writing the story of your entire existence. Different cells perform different roles, just as citizens in a city do. Some are muscle cells, long and fibrous, built for contraction and movement. Others are nerve cells, or neurons, specialized messengers that carry electrical signals. Some float freely as blood cells, rushing through your veins to deliver oxygen and collect waste. And some form protective barriers, epithelial cells, lining your skin, your mouth, your organs, keeping your inner world separate from the outer one. Each cell type has its own architecture, its own tools, its own rhythm of life and death. And all of them, somehow, agree on a common purpose: to keep you alive. When cells group together with a shared goal, they form tissues. You can think of tissues as neighborhoods within the city of your body, each with its own specialty. There are 4 major types. First, epithelial tissue, the body's protective coat. It covers surfaces, lines cavities, and regulates what enters and exits your inner world. Then there's connective tissue, which, as the name suggests, connects. It's the framework that holds everything together: bone, cartilage, tendons, ligaments, fat. It's like the scaffolding of a great building, quietly keeping it upright. Muscle tissue gives you motion. Every smile, every breath, every heartbeat begins with a muscle fiber contracting. And finally, nervous tissue, the most communicative of them all. sending and receiving electrical messages, the body's own form of thought. These tissues combine to form organs. An organ is not just a part, it's a partnership. The heart, for example, is made of muscle tissue that contracts, connective tissue that supports, and nervous tissue that times each beat perfectly. All of it enclosed by a thin layer of epithelium, keeping it safe and contained. The same principle applies everywhere. In lungs, in skin, in eyes. Nothing in the body exists alone. Everything is made of many things working as one. It's an elegant kind of democracy. And when multiple organs work together toward a greater purpose, we call that a system. The circulatory system moves blood. The nervous system coordinates thought. The digestive system processes energy. The skeletal system gives shape and strength. Each is distinct, yet inseparable from the rest. Together, they make a living whole. The human being, a masterpiece of coordination and quiet resilience. Sometimes I like to imagine it this way. You are a universe, and your cells are your stars. They burn with energy, communicate across distances, and together they form constellations of meaning. Heart, brain, skin, bone. Astronomers look upward to study galaxies. Anatomists look inward, but in both directions, they find the same wonder. If you could shrink yourself small enough to walk among your own cells, you'd see highways of motion, rivers of cytoplasm flowing through translucent streets, factories assembling proteins, messengers racing between nuclei like couriers in a city at dawn. It would feel strangely familiar, as if the body itself were a living city built by the laws of physics and refined by time. And the most astonishing thing? No one is in charge. There's no mayor, no conductor, no single command. Each part simply does what it knows to do. Order arises from cooperation, not command. It's biology's quiet genius. As you listen, notice your breathing. Without effort, your lungs expand and contract. You don't have to ask them to. Your diaphragm knows its role. Your heart adjusts to match the rhythm. Your brain stays informed, but doesn't interfere. It's a perfect example of trust within a system. Each part doing just enough, never too much. The human body is not merely alive, it is balanced. Perhaps that's what makes anatomy so beautiful. It's not just a catalog of parts, it's a story of harmony. You are not a machine. You are a conversation between organs, between molecules, between generations of cells passing on the memory of what it means to be alive. Every scar, every breath, every heartbeat is a sentence in that story. And as we move deeper into this night of knowledge, we'll begin to explore the systems themselves, the bones that hold you upright, the muscles that move you, the nerves that let you think and feel. But for now, just remember this. Within you, trillions of living beings are working quietly and tirelessly so that you can rest. You don't need to control them. You just need to trust them. If your body were a cathedral, then your skeleton would be its framework. The silent pillars and arches that hold the entire structure in place. It's strange to think that beneath the softness of skin and muscle, you are made of stone. Not real stone, of course, but a living version of it. Bone, a material so resilient that it can outlast the rest of you by thousands of years. In museums, bones are displayed behind glass, lit by spotlights as if they were relics of saints. But the truth is, you carry your own relics wherever you go. Your skeleton is your oldest companion. The human skeleton has 206 bones, each one a small miracle of design. Together, they create the framework that gives you shape and motion, protection and proportion. They are both armor and architecture. Without bones, you'd be a puddle of potential, a brilliant mind with no scaffolding to sit upon, which, you have to admit, would make conversation rather difficult. At the top of this structure lies your skull, a natural helmet crafted with astonishing precision. It shields the brain, cradles the eyes, and houses the machinery of speech and expression. The skull is made of 22 bones, delicately fused together. You might think of it as one solid dome, but in truth, it's a jigsaw of interlocking plates. When you were born, those plates were still separated by soft gaps called fontanelles, which allowed your head to flex during birth. Over time, they fused, a slow choreography of growth and closure. Even in adulthood, the skull remains subtly alive, its inner surfaces resonating with every heartbeat, its tiny joints adjusting with each breath you take. Below the skull runs your spine, the central column of your body, your axis of balance, and quite literally, your backbone in every sense. It's composed of 33 vertebrae stacked like coins, each separated by a cushion of cartilage called a disc. Those discs absorb shock, allow flexibility, and sometimes, when you've been sitting too long, complain just enough to remind you that you're human. The spine is more than structure. It's a highway for your nervous system, a tunnel through which electrical impulses race from your brain to every corner of your body. Without it, the orchestra of motion would fall silent. The spine divides into regions: cervical at the top, your neck; thoracic through the middle, your chest; lumbar near the base, your lower back; and the sacrum and coccyx below. A reminder of our distant evolutionary past, when tails were still fashionable. Each curve of the spine is intentional. It's not perfectly straight, and that's the beauty of it. Its curves act like springs, absorbing impact as you walk, run, or jump. Even in design, the body values resilience over rigidity. The rib cage fans out from the spine like a bird's wings, a cage that protects, but also breathes. 12 pairs of ribs arch around your chest, each one moving ever so slightly with every inhalation. It's not the prison it appears to be. It's a moving, musical instrument, expanding and contracting in perfect time with your lungs. The ribs protect your most vital organs: the heart, the lungs, and parts of the liver and stomach. Yet they're flexible enough to let you dance, to laugh, to sigh. If they were too stiff, you'd be safe but miserable. If they were too loose, you'd be a medical curiosity. Evolution, as always, found the middle ground. And then there are your arms and legs, the instruments of exploration and motion. Each limb is a masterpiece of mechanical engineering: levers, pivots, and counterbalances crafted from bone and ligament. Your upper arm bone, the humerus, connects at the shoulder to a shallow socket, a joint designed for freedom, not security. That's why you can paint, throw, or hug, and why, occasionally, shoulders dislocate. Every design comes with trade-offs. Below it, the radius and ulna twist and slide, allowing your wrist to turn, the reason you can stir tea or write or wave goodnight. In your legs, the femur, the thigh bone, is the largest and strongest bone in your body. It carries your weight, absorbs your steps, and anchors you to the earth. At its base, the kneecap, or patella, acts like a pulley, redirecting the forces of your muscles to make movement efficient. Every time you stand up, an elegant dance of physics takes place. Your feet are perhaps the most underappreciated part of all. Each foot contains 26 bones, a complex lattice of arches and levers that support your entire weight with every step. They endure decades of impact, thousands of miles, and yet rarely complain, except perhaps in uncomfortable shoes. You could say that feet are humble philosophers. They spend a lifetime touching the ground, but they never forget to rise. Between your bones lie joints, the quiet hinges of life. Some, like the knee or elbow, move only in one direction. Others, like the shoulder or hip, offer wide, graceful freedom. The secret to their smooth motion is cartilage, a slippery, springy tissue that prevents bone from grinding against bone. And then there are ligaments, fibrous bands that tie bones together, stronger than rope, flexible enough to bend but not break. If bones are the pillars, ligaments are the ropes that keep the temple standing. Inside the bones themselves is something remarkable. Bone marrow. It's not just filler, it's alive, a crimson factory producing billions of blood cells each day. Your red blood cells, which carry oxygen, are born there. Your white blood cells, which defend you, also begin their lives in that hidden chamber. So, in a sense, your bones are not silent at all. They hum with creation. Every day, deep inside you, new life is being forged in the quiet dark of your marrow. The skeleton isn't static. It's constantly remodeling itself, breaking down old tissue and building new. Even now, as you lie still, your bones are subtly renewing. In about 10 years, nearly your entire skeleton will have been replaced. You are literally not the same person you were a decade ago. And yet, you feel continuous. Because identity, it seems, is not stored in matter, but in motion. Sometimes people imagine the skeleton as something cold or grim, a symbol of death. But that's unfair, don't you think? Your bones are not a reminder of mortality. They are the proof of endurance. They are the reason you can stand, move, dance, and laugh. They are architecture in motion, a cathedral that repairs itself from the inside out. So tonight, as you rest and breathe, remember the framework beneath you. Those 206 quiet guardians holding you up against gravity's pull, never demanding thanks, never sleeping. Your bones are silent pillars holding the temple of your being. And within that temple, the heart beats, the lungs fill, the mind drifts gently towards sleep. If bones are the architecture of the body, then muscles are the wind that moves it. They are not mere fibers or strings. They are living engines, tiny bundles of energy, able to pull, twist, and hold, without ever snapping from the constant rhythm of your life. Your body contains over 600 muscles, and together, they account for nearly half your weight. You might think of yourself as solid, but in truth, you are made of motion. When you smile, it takes more than a dozen muscles to lift the corners of your mouth. When you frown, a few different ones take over, proving, perhaps, that nature has no bias toward joy or gloom. Both are equally well engineered. Every blink, every breath, every stretch beneath the sheets is the result of an orchestra of contractions and releases. A muscle shortens when it works, pulling on the bone it's attached to through tendons, those strong, silvery cords that anchor effort to action. Muscles don't push, they only pull. So every movement in your body requires partnership. When you bend your arm, the biceps contracts, while the triceps relaxes. When you straighten it, the roles reverse. Each motion is a dialogue, never a solo. We call this cooperation antagonistic pairs. It's a strangely dramatic name for such a peaceful system. But it fits, because motion is balance. Even walking, that simplest of acts, is a controlled fall, a graceful catching of oneself over and over, thousands of times each day. You don't have to think about it. Your body knows. There are three main kinds of muscle. The first, skeletal muscle, is the kind you can control. The one that lets you lift, run, write, wave. It's attached to your bones, striped like a pattern of tiny threads when viewed under a microscope. Each fiber is filled with proteins that slide past one another, turning chemical energy into movement. It's a quiet miracle that happens millions of times each second. And yet, you never hear a sound. The second type is smooth muscle, the kind that lines your stomach, intestines, and blood vessels. It doesn't ask for permission. It just works. You don't will your food through your digestive tract or tell your arteries to tighten and relax. Your body handles that automatically, like an orchestra playing deep underground. The third, and perhaps most loyal, is the cardiac muscle. It exists only in one place, your heart. The heart's muscle fibers are unlike any other. They contract rhythmically, endlessly, without fatigue. It's estimated that by the time you reach old age, your heart will have beaten more than 3 billion times. It's not just a pump. It's endurance made flesh. Cardiac muscle has its own internal timing system. Each cell can generate electrical impulses, and they coordinate perfectly, as if each heartbeat were a symphony conducted from within. If you ever doubt the intelligence of your body, remember that this instrument plays itself day and night without applause. Muscles can only contract when given the order, and those orders come from nerves. Imagine an electric current traveling down a wire. That's what happens every time you move. A nerve impulse begins in your brain, travels down the spinal cord, branches out through smaller nerves, and finally reaches the muscle fiber, where it triggers a spark of chemistry. Calcium floods in. Molecular hands reach out and pull the fibers closer together. And just like that, your hand closes, your chest rises, your eyelid falls. A single thought becomes a physical act. Every muscle fiber is tiny, thinner than a human hair, but together they generate tremendous power. When you lift something heavy, your brain recruits more fibers, activating them in synchronized bursts. It's a bit like lighting up a city grid. The more lights you turn on, the brighter the force becomes. When you stop, the lights go out again, and your body rests in its natural rhythm of stillness and readiness. Some muscles you never think about at all. The ones in your neck that hold your head upright. The small stabilizers in your feet that keep you balanced. The muscles in your eyes that adjust your gaze thousands of times per minute. Each performs constant, invisible labor. The fact that you can sit here listening without collapsing like a marionette whose strings were cut is thanks to them. They are the quiet professionals of anatomy, rarely acknowledged, always indispensable. And then there are muscles that speak. The tiny ones in your face, over 40 of them, can express joy, sorrow, surprise, or calm. No two people's facial muscles move exactly the same way, which is why every smile in history has been unique. Some scientists say that when we smile, even if we don't feel happy, The brain releases chemicals that make us feel better anyway. It's as if the body can trick the mind into remembering joy. It's one of nature's subtler jokes. A feedback loop of kindness built into your own skin. When muscles grow stronger, it's because the tiny fibers inside them have been challenged, slightly damaged by use, then repaired by the body stronger than before. It's a beautiful kind of resilience. Growth through repair. Strength through healing. Your body, in this way, is an eternal student. It learns from effort. It remembers. Even at rest, your muscles are never truly idle. A faint, constant tension keeps you upright, your posture poised, your breath smooth. Without that subtle engagement, that quiet readiness, you would simply melt into gravity. And speaking of breath, each inhalation, each exhalation is also a muscular act. The diaphragm, a dome-shaped muscle beneath your lungs, descends as you breathe in, creating a vacuum that draws air into your chest. When you exhale, it relaxes, allowing the air to flow out gently. You don't have to command it. It obeys a rhythm older than language, older than thought. If you like, you can try this now. Breathe in, slowly, deeply, and breathe out. That motion, the rise and fall of your breath, is life expressing itself in motion. Muscles aren't just about power or grace. They are also about emotion. We literally feel through them, not only physical sensations, but the posture of our inner lives. When you are tense, your shoulders rise, your jaw tightens. When you are calm, they release. Your emotions don't just live in your mind, they live in your muscles. That's why a deep breath can ease the mind, and why a restless night can sometimes be calmed simply by unclenching the body first. And so, in the silence of this evening, you might imagine your muscles resting. Like a great orchestra that has finished its symphony, the instruments cooling, the conductor bowing his head in quiet satisfaction. They've carried you through the day, lifted, reached, spoken, smiled, and now they ask only to rest. Even now, as you lie still, tiny processes of renewal hum inside each fiber. The rebuilding never stops. If the skeleton is your structure and muscles your motion, then the nervous system is your song. It's the quiet hum of communication that never stops. Even now, while you breathe, while your heart keeps time, while your mind drifts across this story, billions of neurons are firing, a symphony of light within your skull. You could almost say, your body knows before you do. The nervous system is the body's electrical network, a collection of billions of tiny messengers called neurons. Each neuron is a cell, but not like any other. It has long branching arms, dendrites, that receive signals, and a single slender wire, the axon, that sends them onward. At the end of that wire is a small gap called a synapse, where chemistry and electricity meet. When one neuron wants to communicate with another, it releases tiny molecules called neurotransmitters. They leap across the gap like sparks between stars. The signal continues, cell to cell, until thought becomes action and perception becomes understanding. Your brain, the command center, is made up of about 86 billion neurons. That's more than the stars you can see in the night sky. Each neuron can connect to thousands of others, which means that, mathematically speaking, the number of possible connections inside your head is greater than all the atoms in the known universe. It's not an exaggeration. It's reality. So the next time someone tells you to use your brain, you can rest assured. You already are, in ways no one fully understands. The nervous system has two great divisions. The central nervous system, which includes the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which extends through the rest of your body like glowing threads. Imagine the brain as a lighthouse, and the nerves as the light rays spreading outward. Every sensation, every movement, every heartbeat traces its way back to that luminous tower. Your brain gathers information, interprets it, and sends out responses, a process so quick that you'd never suspect the dialogue happening within you every millisecond. The spinal cord, that long, delicate strand running down your back, is the main highway of this system. It carries messages between the brain and the body. If you touch something hot, your spinal cord can pull your hand away before your brain even knows what happened. That's called a reflex arc, the body's version of instinct. It's not that the brain is lazy. It's just that evolution knows the value of a shortcut. From the spinal cord branch out countless nerves, each made of bundles of axons wrapped in a fatty insulation called myelin. This coating speeds up the electrical signals, like the plastic around an electrical wire. It's why you can move your hand or blink your eye almost instantly after deciding to. Every flicker of intention travels at speeds up to 120 meters per second. That's faster than a racing car. And yet, it happens entirely within you. Silently, efficiently, beautifully. Then there's the autonomic nervous system, the part that works without your permission, thankfully. It controls your heartbeat, your digestion, your breathing, your pupils adjusting to light, and the sweat that cools you when you're warm. It has two main branches. The sympathetic system, which prepares you for action, your fight or flight mode, and the parasympathetic system, which brings you back to calm. They're like the accelerator and the brake of a car, constantly balancing one another. Right now, as you listen to this gentle rhythm, your parasympathetic system is in charge, slowing your pulse, easing your breath, inviting rest. The brain itself is often compared to a computer, but that's not quite fair to the brain. A computer can only do what it's told. The brain learns, adapts, and dreams. It weighs about 3 pounds, roughly the same as a small melon, and yet it consumes about 20% of your body's energy. That's an expensive organ to keep running, but the payoff is immense. It lets you think, remember, imagine, and love. The outer layer of the brain is called the cerebral cortex, a sheet of folded tissue responsible for perception, language, reasoning, and memory. Those folds aren't just for aesthetics. They increase surface area, allowing billions more neurons to fit inside your skull. If you could unfold your cortex, it would cover the surface of a large dinner napkin. And yet, it holds the history of everything you've ever experienced. Beneath it lies the limbic system, the seat of emotion and motivation. Here lives the amygdala, the alarm bell that detects danger, and the hippocampus, which records and retrieves memory. When you recall a childhood moment, the smell of rain, the sound of laughter, you're visiting your hippocampus, a structure shaped like a curled seahorse deep in your brain. And at the center of it all is the hypothalamus, a tiny but powerful regulator of hunger, temperature, and hormones. It's barely the size of a pea, yet it keeps your entire body in balance. Your inner thermostat of life. The brain stem connects the brain to the spinal cord. the oldest and most primitive part of your nervous system. It controls vital functions like breathing and heartbeat. You can think of it as the always-on setting of the human body. It's humbling to realize that the most essential parts of life are handled by the most ancient pieces of you. We are all, in a sense, walking conversations between the past and the present. Nerves also reach into the senses, the ways we interface with the world. Vision converts light into meaning. Hearing turns vibrations into memory. Touch maps the world in texture and temperature. Smell and taste tie us to emotion, because they speak directly to the brain's oldest pathways. The scent of something familiar can open a door in the mind that time itself forgot. That's not magic. It's neurology. And what about thought itself? That quiet inner voice, that spark of self-awareness that says, I am. Neuroscience has made astonishing progress, but no one fully knows how consciousness arises. It seems to emerge from countless neurons interacting, their signals forming patterns too complex to trace. Perhaps thought is not a single thing, but a rhythm, like waves on the sea, never the same twice, and yet always connected. The nervous system is both physical and poetic. It's made of cells and chemistry, but it gives rise to memory, imagination, and dreams. When you listen to music, your auditory cortex dances. When you fall in love, dopamine and oxytocin flood your circuits. When you sleep, your brain sorts the day into stories, rearranging experience into meaning. It's the most private theater in the universe, and every night you are both actor and audience. And even when you rest, your brain does not sleep. It hums softly, washing itself with cerebrospinal fluid, clearing away the waste of thought, readying you for another day of awareness. It's a beautiful thing that even silence is full of activity. So as your thoughts begin to slow and your mind grows quieter, remember that beneath the stillness there is motion, a pulse of electricity, a storm of light and chemistry, keeping you alive and guiding you gently toward rest. Let's start with the sound you've heard every day of your life, even before you were born. That steady thump inside your chest, the one that refuses to take a day off. That's your heart, a rather muscular overachiever, roughly the size of your fist, and probably the hardest working thing you own. It beats about 100,000 times per day. That's roughly 35 million times per year. If any other piece of machinery performed that long without replacement, we'd call it a miracle of engineering. But for the heart, it's just Tuesday. The heart is essentially a pump, not a romantic metaphor, not a symbol of courage, a literal pump made of muscle. It has 4 chambers, 2 atria on top and 2 ventricles below. Think of the atria as the reception rooms, where blood first arrives, and the ventricles as the shipping departments, where blood is sent out again. Between them are valves, tiny flaps of tissue that make sure blood flows in one direction only. They open and close with every beat, producing that familiar lub-dub sound you hear through a stethoscope. Lub, when the valves between atria and ventricles close. Dub, when the valves at the exits shut tight. Your heartbeat, in other words, is your valves politely saying after you and thank you 100,000 times a day. Here's the basic route of blood. Oxygen-poor blood enters the right side of the heart, is pumped to the lungs, picks up oxygen, then returns to the left side, where it's pumped out to the rest of the body. two circuits, endlessly, repeating, one for the lungs, one for everything else. It's an elegant loop, simple in concept, astonishing in reliability. The right ventricle sends blood to the lungs through the pulmonary artery. There, in microscopic air sacs called alveoli, carbon dioxide leaves, oxygen enters, and your blood turns from dark red to bright scarlet. Chemistry's version of a deep breath. That freshly oxygenated blood returns to the left side of the heart, which then propels it through the aorta, the body's main highway. From there, it branches endlessly. Arteries to smaller arteries, arterioles to capillaries, tiny vessels so narrow that red blood cells must squeeze through one at a time. Then, like travelers finishing their errands, the blood collects into veins and makes the long trip home, back to the heart, again and again. The whole journey takes about 20 seconds. That means, in a single minute, your blood makes roughly 3 complete loops through your body. And you didn't even have to buy a ticket. Your blood is more than just a red liquid. It's a living tissue, a moving mixture of cells and plasma. About half of it is plasma, a pale yellow fluid made mostly of water, but carrying proteins, hormones, nutrients, and waste products. The other half is formed elements: red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Red blood cells, or erythrocytes, if you want to sound clever, carry oxygen thanks to a molecule called hemoglobin. Each one can hold about 1 billion oxygen molecules at a time. Multiply that by your entire blood volume, and you start to understand why your body never needs a delivery service. White blood cells patrol the bloodstream like microscopic security guards. They detect, attack, and dismantle invaders. Viruses, bacteria, anything that looks suspiciously foreign. Platelets, meanwhile, are the emergency repair crew. When a blood vessel is damaged, they rush in, stick together, and form a clot, essentially a biological patch job. Your circulatory system is roughly 60,000 miles long. That's long enough to wrap around the Earth more than twice. It's an impressive fact, and also a slightly terrifying one if you ever start thinking about how much maintenance that must require. Thankfully, your body handles the logistics on its own. The heart doesn't beat randomly. It follows an internal rhythm, set by a cluster of specialized cells in the right atrium called the sinoatrial node. This node is your natural pacemaker. It generates electrical impulses that tell the heart when to contract. The signal spreads across the atria, pauses briefly at the atrioventricular node, then moves down into the ventricles, causing them to contract a split second later. That delay, tiny as it is what keeps your blood moving in perfect sequence. If the heart were an orchestra, the sinoatrial node would be the conductor. A small, quiet, and underpaid conductor, but absolutely vital. Sometimes people ask why the heart never tires. After all, it's just another muscle. Shouldn't it need rest like your biceps or calves? The answer lies in how it's built. Cardiac muscle has an extraordinary supply of mitochondria, the little energy factories of cells. About 30% of each heart cell is pure power plant. It's as if your heart runs on a lifetime warranty of stamina. It gets tired, yes, but only momentarily. Then it keeps going. You could say the heart doesn't stop to rest. It rests by continuing. Every heartbeat creates pressure that you can feel as a pulse. It's that rhythmic push in your wrist or neck. Your body's own metronome. Blood pressure measured in millimeters of mercury. is simply the force of blood against your artery walls. Too high, and the pipes start to wear down. Too low, and the organs don't get enough supply. The goal is moderation, as with most things in life. When the blood returns from its long trip around the body, it carries waste materials, carbon dioxide, urea, and other leftovers, which the kidneys and lungs remove. It's a tidy recycling system. You could call it the world's most efficient delivery and cleanup service. The best part? You never have to tip. Every now and then, it's worth remembering that the first organ to form when you were developing in the womb was the heart. Before you had a brain, bones, or even a face, your heart was already pulsing, a single tube, looping and folding, preparing for the long task ahead. So when people say the heart is where life begins, they're not being sentimental. They're just quoting biology. The circulatory system is teamwork at its finest. Heart, blood, and vessels, all cooperating without complaint, 24 hours a day for decades. You can go to sleep, and your heart will still show up to work. You can run, rest, laugh, or sigh, and it'll adapt instantly. No memo required. If there were ever an argument for quiet competence, the heart makes it daily. The heart may keep the rhythm, but the lungs provide the melody. Without them, your bloodstream would be like an orchestra with no air in the brass section, technically present, but not very inspiring. Breathing is so automatic that most people forget it's happening, which is probably for the best. Because if we had to remember to breathe, the species wouldn't have made it very far. Let's start with the basics. The respiratory system is how your body takes in oxygen and releases carbon dioxide. It's your personal air exchange service, open 24/7, no subscription required. You breathe about 20,000 times a day. That's roughly 7 million breaths a year. And unless you're a professional singer or a yoga instructor, you probably haven't thought much about any of them. When you inhale, air enters through your nose or mouth, travels down your throat, the pharynx, past your voice box, the larynx, and into the trachea, the windpipe. From there, the trachea divides into two branches called bronchi, one leading to each lung. Those bronchi branch again into smaller and smaller tubes called bronchioles, until they finally end in clusters of microscopic air sacs called alveoli. If the lungs are a tree, the trachea is the trunk, the bronchi are the branches, and the alveoli are the leaves, tiny, delicate leaves, where the magic happens. Each lung contains about 300 million alveoli. If you spread them all out flat, they'd cover the surface of a tennis court. Which means that, technically, you have a sports complex inside your chest. The alveoli are wrapped in a fine network of blood vessels called capillaries. Here, oxygen from the air passes into the blood, while carbon dioxide, a waste product of metabolism, moves out. It's a quiet trade agreement between air and blood, negotiated perfectly every second of your life. The main muscle responsible for breathing is the diaphragm, a dome-shaped sheet of muscle that separates your chest from your abdomen. When you inhale, the diaphragm contracts and moves downward, increasing the space in your chest cavity. This creates negative pressure, essentially a vacuum, that pulls air into your lungs. When you exhale, the diaphragm relaxes and moves upward again, pushing air back out. You could call it your built-in air pump. Quiet, efficient, and rarely in need of repair. Most of the time, this whole process happens automatically, controlled by the brain stem. But you can also take conscious control to sing, to speak, or to blow out birthday candles. That's one of the fascinating things about breathing. It sits on the border between voluntary and involuntary. You can't decide to stop your heart, but you can hold your breath, for a while anyway. Eventually, though, your brain will override your rebellion. It always wins the argument. Now, oxygen itself doesn't just hang around in your bloodstream. It binds to hemoglobin inside red blood cells. Each molecule of hemoglobin can carry 4 oxygen molecules, like a delivery van with exactly 4 seats. The blood delivers this oxygen to your tissues, where it's used to make energy through a process called cellular respiration. The waste product, carbon dioxide, hitches a ride back to the lungs for the return trip. So every breath is both arrival and departure. Oxygen coming in, carbon dioxide going out. A perfect exchange that keeps every cell in your body alive. You might have noticed how breathing changes depending on what you're doing. When you're calm, it's slow and steady. When you're running, it becomes faster and deeper. That's your brain's respiratory center adjusting automatically. It monitors carbon dioxide levels in your blood. And if they rise, it speeds up your breathing to get rid of the excess. Your body doesn't actually breathe because it wants oxygen. It breathes because it hates too much carbon dioxide. A little neurotic, perhaps, but it works. And yes, the lungs are not perfectly symmetrical. The right lung has 3 lobes, while the left has only 2, making room for your heart, which insists on leaning left like a guest who takes up too much of the couch. Each lung is surrounded by a thin, double-layered membrane called the pleura. Between the 2 layers is a tiny space filled with fluid, which allows the lungs to glide smoothly as they expand and contract. It's a clever design, like biological ball bearings. Sometimes, we underestimate what breathing actually does beyond oxygen exchange. It also plays a role in speech, posture, even emotion. When you're anxious, your breathing becomes shallow. When you're relaxed, it deepens. That's why taking a slow breath really can calm you down. It's not mystical, it's physiological. Your diaphragm and your nervous system are in constant conversation. One sigh can be enough to convince your body that the crisis is over. And then, of course, there's sneezing. A sneeze is your respiratory system's way of saying, absolutely not. That particle will not enter this facility. It's a violent burst of air, traveling at up to 100 miles per hour, powerful enough to send microscopic droplets several feet away. Which is why your coworkers are right to give you that look. Coughing, similarly, is the system's emergency alarm, clearing irritants from the airways with blunt efficiency. Lungs may be gentle, but they don't tolerate nonsense. Now, not all breathing is equal. Shallow, fast breathing tends to activate your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight mode. Deep, slow breathing stimulates the parasympathetic side, the rest and digest mode. This is why meditation, yoga, or even a few deep breaths before a meeting actually make measurable changes in your body's chemistry. They shift your physiology from defense to recovery. So, ironically, one of the most powerful tools of modern stress management was built into you millions of years ago. Your respiratory system is also deeply tied to other systems. Without it, the heart can't function, the brain can't think, and the muscles can't move. The lungs don't just feed the body oxygen. They regulate acidity, influence blood pressure, and even play a role in immune defense. Each breath you take adjusts the chemistry of your blood in subtle, continuous ways. You are, quite literally, tuning your own internal environment with every inhale and exhale. And perhaps most humbling of all, you take your first breath within seconds of birth, and your last one marks your departure. In between, you'll take about 600 million of them. No one applauds you for most of them, but they are, quietly, the most consistent thing you do. So, as you breathe now, you might notice how steady it is, how each breath fills and empties without demand or effort. That's the lungs doing exactly what they evolved to do, turning the invisible air into life again and again, without needing your supervision. Not bad for a couple of pink, spongy organs that spend all day just inflating and deflating. The digestive system is, in essence, your body's internal chemistry lab. It takes in matter from the outside world, a sandwich, a banana, a slightly regrettable midnight snack, and turns it into fuel, energy, and eventually you. It's one of the most underappreciated collaborations in nature. We tend to thank the chef, rarely the intestines. Digestion begins the moment food even enters your thoughts. When you smell something delicious, your brain sends signals to your salivary glands. A polite notice that work is about to begin. That's why your mouth waters before you take the first bite. Your body is already one step ahead. Inside your mouth, saliva starts the chemical process. It's mostly water, but it contains enzymes, tiny biological scissors that start cutting complex carbohydrates into simpler sugars. Meanwhile, your teeth handle the mechanical side of things, breaking the food into smaller pieces so the chemistry can do its job later. If you've ever tried to swallow a bite that was too big, you've personally confirmed that teamwork between teeth and saliva is not optional. Once you swallow, the food passes through the pharynx and enters the esophagus, a flexible muscular tube about 10 inches long. Contrary to what cartoons suggest, food doesn't simply fall downward. The esophagus uses rhythmic muscle contractions called peristalsis to push it along like a slow, determined conveyor belt. You could eat upside down, and your food would still reach the stomach. Gravity helps, sure, but it's not in charge. The stomach is where things get serious. It's a stretchy sack of muscle that churns food in an acidic bath of hydrochloric acid and enzymes. This acid is strong enough to dissolve metal, which sounds alarming until you remember that your stomach lining is constantly regenerating itself to withstand it. So yes, your stomach is basically a self-repairing acid tank. And it's fine. Probably. The acid doesn't digest everything, though. It mostly breaks down proteins, turning big molecules into smaller, more manageable ones. The stomach also acts as a temporary holding chamber, releasing its contents slowly into the small intestine. This is why eating too fast can leave you feeling heavy. You've overwhelmed the queue. Now, the small intestine is where the magic truly happens. Despite the name, it's about 20 feet long. If you could stretch it out, which I don't recommend, you'd find an extraordinary surface full of folds, ridges, and tiny finger-like projections called villi. The purpose of all that folding is to increase surface area. More surface area means more absorption, and the small intestine is all about efficiency. Here, Enzymes from the pancreas and bile from the liver join the party. Bile helps dissolve fats, while pancreatic enzymes finish breaking down carbohydrates and proteins. Then, through the villi, nutrients, sugars, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals are absorbed directly into your bloodstream. It's the ultimate recycling operation, turning the outside world into raw material for life. The liver, by the way, is a multitasking powerhouse. It filters toxins, stores nutrients, produces bile, and manages over 500 chemical reactions at once. If it were an employee, it would deserve a serious raise and probably a vacation. The gallbladder is its assistant, a small pouch that stores bile and releases it when needed. You can live without a gallbladder, but you might want to avoid deep-fried challenges for a while if you do. After the small intestine, whatever remains moves into the large intestine, also known as the colon. Here, most of the water is reabsorbed. Beneficial bacteria, your gut microbiome, break down leftover materials and even produce certain vitamins, like vitamin K. These bacteria outnumber your own cells by a considerable margin. So technically, you're not just a person, you're a walking ecosystem. Congratulations. Finally, the waste products move to the rectum and are expelled through the anus. It's not glamorous, but it's an essential part of the cycle. If digestion is a concert, this is simply the finale. Now, digestion isn't just about breaking down food. It's also closely linked to mood, immunity, and overall health. The gut communicates with the brain through the vagus nerve, so much so that some scientists call the gut the second brain. When you feel nervous and get butterflies in your stomach, that's not a metaphor. It's your nervous system and digestive system having a brief, awkward meeting. And when you feel sluggish after a huge meal, it's not laziness. It's biology asking for a moment to process what you just did to it. The process of digestion takes anywhere from 24 to 72 hours, depending on what you ate. Fatty meals take longer. Fruits and vegetables are quicker. It's a slow, careful ballet of chemistry and timing, and it never really stops. Even now, somewhere deep in your abdomen, enzymes are working, acids are bubbling, muscles are contracting. A quiet industry keeping you alive. If you've ever felt your stomach growl, that's called borborygmus, a fun word for the gurgling sounds made by gas and fluid moving through your intestines. It's a normal sign that your digestive tract is busy, though perhaps not the most discreet biological function. Everyone experiences it, even professors giving lectures, which is why microphones are both a blessing and a risk. Your digestive system is surprisingly polite in its efficiency. It accepts whatever you throw at it, within reason, extracts what's useful, and quietly disposes of the rest. It doesn't complain unless you make a habit of overworking it. And even then, it usually forgives you. Eventually. So as you rest tonight, know that your internal chemistry lab continues without pause. The enzymes will keep cutting, the stomach will keep churning, and the intestines will keep sorting through the data of dinner. It's not glamorous work, but it's the kind that sustains life, steadily, invisibly, and without any need for applause. If the nervous system is your body's lightning-fast electrical network, the endocrine system is its slower, steadier postal service. It doesn't send messages through wires, but through chemicals, hormones, that drift through your bloodstream like well-informed carrier pigeons. They take their time, but they always deliver. Hormones are your body's chemical messengers. Each one has a specific job, and each knows exactly where to go. They regulate growth, metabolism, sleep, mood, reproduction, essentially, every subtle adjustment that keeps your internal world balanced. And like any well-run organization, the body has managers, glands, that produce and distribute these messages on schedule. At the very top of the command chain is the pituitary gland, a small structure about the size of a pea tucked at the base of your brain. Don't let the size fool you. This tiny gland is often called the master gland because it controls most of the others. It releases hormones that instruct your thyroid, adrenal glands, and reproductive organs when to start or stop their work. If your body were a company, the pituitary would be that one overworked manager who writes the memos, approves the budgets, and still gets blamed when things go wrong. Just above it sits the hypothalamus, a region of the brain that keeps everything coordinated. It links your nervous system to your endocrine system, translating electrical signals into chemical messages. It controls body temperature, hunger, thirst, circadian rhythms. And yes, it even influences when you feel sleepy or awake. In a way, the hypothalamus is your body's thermostat, clock, and switchboard all at once. A multitasker with no vacation days. The thyroid gland, located in your neck, controls how fast or slow your metabolism runs. It produces hormones that tell your cells how quickly to use energy. If your thyroid works overtime, you might feel jittery and lose weight. If it works too slowly, you may feel sluggish and gain it. Either way, the thyroid proves an important biological truth. Balance is everything. Behind the thyroid sit 4 tiny glands, the parathyroids, which regulate calcium levels in your blood. You don't notice them much, but without them, your muscles and nerves couldn't function properly. They're like quiet maintenance workers who never miss a shift. Then there are the adrenal glands, small triangular caps sitting atop your kidneys. These glands release adrenaline and cortisol, hormones that prepare you for action. When you're startled or stressed, they flood your system with energy. Heart rate increases, airways open, and glucose rushes into the blood. It's the ancient fight-or-flight response. Handy if you're running from a lion, slightly less helpful during modern tax season. Still, the adrenal glands don't judge context. They just do their job. Keep you alive when things get intense. Next, the pancreas, an unassuming organ tucked behind the stomach, plays a vital role in controlling blood sugar. It releases insulin to help your cells absorb glucose from food, and glucagon to release stored sugar when levels drop. It's like a diligent accountant, balancing the books of energy, making sure no cell goes bankrupt. When this balance fails, as in diabetes, the effects ripple through the entire body, proving just how interconnected every system truly is. In males, the testes produce testosterone, influencing muscle mass, bone density, and reproductive function. In females, the ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone, regulating the menstrual cycle and playing key roles in pregnancy. These hormones shape not just our bodies, but our moods, our growth, and even how we respond to stress. And like all things biological, they fluctuate, sometimes unpredictably. If you've ever blamed your mood on your hormones, you were probably right. The pineal gland, a tiny structure deep in the brain, secretes melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep. It responds to light, producing more when it's dark, less when it's bright. It's your internal nightlight switch, slowly dimming you toward rest. That's why bright screens before bed can confuse it. They trick the pineal gland into thinking it's still daytime. Your body is ancient. It still believes the sun decides when you should sleep. All these glands and hormones operate in delicate harmony, a feedback system of checks and balances. When one gland releases a hormone, others respond, and the body adjusts accordingly. Too much or too little of any hormone, and the system gently corrects itself. Usually. When it doesn't, modern medicine steps in to lend a hand, replacing or regulating what the body can't manage on its own. It's tempting to think of hormones as emotional villains or heroes, the cause of every bad mood or sudden craving. But really, they're just messengers, doing their best to keep order amid chaos. They don't make you moody or tired out of spite. They're trying to tell you something, that the system needs balance, rest, nourishment, or calm. Your endocrine system is always whispering advice, but it never raises its voice. So, as you lie here tonight, you might imagine those invisible messengers drifting through your blood. Tiny molecules carrying quiet orders to every cell. Grow. Rest. Repair. Sleep. And of course, try not to think too much about work. They're gentle signals, reminders that your body knows what it's doing. It's been running this operation for millions of years. Your immune system never sleeps. While you're reading, resting, dreaming, or arguing with someone on the internet, it's patrolling, scanning, identifying, eliminating. It's the quiet security service of your body. And unlike most security guards, it doesn't take coffee breaks. The immune system is not a single organ, but a vast network, cells, tissues, and molecules spread across your entire body. It defends you against viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites, and occasionally your own questionable decisions. Its main principle is simple. Distinguish self from non-self. In other words, it knows what belongs to you and what doesn't. If it's part of you, it leaves it alone. If it's not, it attacks, usually with impressive enthusiasm. Let's start with the first line of defense. Your skin. It's your biological armor, a barrier so effective that most pathogens can't get past it. It secretes oils and acids that make life unpleasant for invading microbes. It even sheds constantly, so that any bacteria hanging on are carried away like dust in the wind. You are, quite literally, exfoliating your enemies. But let's say something manages to slip through. A cut, a scratch, or maybe a curious virus hitching a ride on a sneeze. That's where the innate immune system steps in. It's your body's first responder. Fast, blunt, and not very subtle. White blood cells called phagocytes rush to the scene. They engulf intruders, quite literally swallowing them whole. It's not elegant, but it's effective. Think of them as microscopic bouncers who don't negotiate. When they engage the enemy, they also release signaling molecules called cytokines. These act like emergency sirens, alerting other immune cells to join the fight. That's why infected areas become red, swollen, and warm. Inflammation is your body's version of a flashing under-repair sign. If the invaders persist, the adaptive immune system joins in, a far more sophisticated, memory-based defense. It takes longer to mobilize, but once it learns an enemy's identity, it never forgets. Specialized white blood cells called lymphocytes handle this job. There are two main types, B cells and T cells. B cells produce antibodies, tiny Y-shaped proteins that bind to specific invaders. Each antibody fits its target like a key in a lock. Once attached, it either neutralizes the invader or tags it for destruction by other cells. T cells, meanwhile, are the tacticians and soldiers. Some coordinate the overall response, others directly attack infected cells. Together, they form a defense strategy so advanced that human militaries could take notes. Your immune system also keeps records, a database of every pathogen it's ever encountered. That's how immunity works. If the same germ tries to invade again, the system recognizes it instantly and neutralizes it before you even notice. Vaccines use this memory to your advantage. They train your immune system using a harmless piece of a pathogen, like showing a wanted poster instead of the real criminal. Your immune system memorizes the face, so when the real thing shows up, it's already on the most wanted list. The immune system is distributed throughout your body. The bone marrow produces white blood cells. The thymus trains T cells when you're young. Your spleen filters blood, removing old cells and pathogens. And the lymph nodes act as checkpoints, where immune cells meet, share intelligence, and coordinate attacks. When you feel those nodes swell during an infection, that's not the disease getting worse. It's the headquarters getting busy. Now, sometimes, the immune system can be a little overzealous. Allergies are an example of mistaken identity. Your body sees harmless things like pollen or peanuts and declares full-scale war. It's like calling in air support for a housefly. Then there are autoimmune diseases, where the system becomes confused and attacks the body's own tissues. Conditions like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis are tragic reminders of how complex and delicate this network truly is. The immune system walks a fine line between protection and destruction. Most of the time, it stays balanced. But it's an exhausting job. You can support your immune system, of course, not through miracle tonics or questionable supplements, but through simple habits: sleep, nutrition, hydration, and calm. Yes, calm. Because stress releases cortisol, which ironically suppresses immune function. So the next time you think you're too stressed to get sick, your body may politely disagree. There's also a fascinating conversation between the immune system and the gut. The gut microbiome, those trillions of friendly bacteria, help train immune cells to recognize what's dangerous and what's not. They're like local guides teaching the immune system about neighborhood life. When that relationship is healthy, your defenses are balanced. When it's disrupted, say by poor diet or antibiotics, the immune system can lose its sense of proportion. So yes, your dinner can, indirectly, influence how well you fight a cold. And then there's fever. People often see fever as the enemy, but it's actually part of your immune strategy. Raising your body temperature makes it harder for pathogens to multiply. It's a heat-based defense mechanism, your body's way of saying, if you can't take the heat, you shouldn't have invaded. Even sleep plays a huge role in immunity. During deep sleep, your body produces cytokines that help coordinate the immune response. That's one reason you feel tired when you're sick. Your brain is encouraging you to rest, so the system can get to work. It's a clever design. The less you move, the more energy your body can devote to recovery. If you could zoom in on your bloodstream right now, you'd see a bustling microscopic city. cells communicating through chemical signals, chasing pathogens, cleaning debris, repairing damage, all in perfect silence. There are no sirens, no flashing lights, just molecules doing what they evolved to do over millions of years. It's beautiful, in a deeply logical way. And it's humbling too. You've survived countless invasions without ever noticing. For every cold that made you miserable, there are thousands of battles you never even felt. Your immune system doesn't seek gratitude, but it deserves it. So maybe once in a while, when you get over a cold or heal from a scratch, take a quiet moment to appreciate the invisible army that got you there. It's the kind of army that wins wars without ever raising its voice. Every system in your body produces waste. It's the price of being alive. Cells burn fuel, process nutrients, repair themselves. And all of that leaves byproducts that need to go somewhere. Thankfully, your body has an exceptionally efficient waste management department. It works day and night, never asks for credit, and rarely takes a holiday. The kidneys are the heart of this operation. They sit quietly in your lower back, each about the size of your fist, shaped like a bean, which is, incidentally, why kidney beans are called that, not the other way around. Each kidney contains about 1 million tiny filtering units called nephrons. These are microscopic machines, each one performing the same elegant sequence. Filter the blood, reabsorb what's needed, and send the rest on its way. If the kidneys were employees, they'd be the ones who stay late to make sure all the paperwork is done. Here's how the process works. Blood enters the kidney through the renal artery and passes into each nephron, where a cluster of capillaries called the glomerulus acts as a sieve. It filters out water, salts, sugars, and waste molecules, but keeps larger proteins and blood cells. They're too valuable to throw away. The filtered fluid then travels through a long, winding tube where the body reclaims what it needs: glucose, amino acids, some water, and ions. It's like sorting through recycling, keeping what's useful, discarding what's not. What remains at the end of the line is urine, a precise chemical summary of your body's internal balance. It's more informative than it looks. Doctors can learn an astonishing amount from a single sample. The urine travels from the kidneys down 2 narrow tubes called ureters, which deliver it to the bladder. The bladder is essentially a muscular storage tank, lined with stretch receptors that politely inform you when it's time to empty it. When full, it can hold about half a liter of urine. Though humans have been known to test that limit during long meetings. The final stop is the urethra, the tube through which urine leaves the body. Ring of muscles called sphincters controls its release, one involuntary, one under conscious control. It's a delicate collaboration between brain and bladder. And as toddlers learning potty training can confirm, it takes practice. The kidneys don't just handle waste. They also regulate blood pressure, control fluid balance, and maintain proper levels of electrolytes like sodium and potassium. They're quietly running chemistry labs, tuning the body's internal environment every second. If blood pressure drops, the kidneys release hormones that signal the vessels to constrict. If it rises, they excrete more water and salt to lower the pressure again. They're the masters of moderation, keeping everything in that narrow range where life works best. One of their most elegant tricks is the regulation of pH, the acidity or alkalinity of your blood. Cells function properly only within a tight pH range. The kidneys help maintain it by excreting hydrogen ions and reabsorbing bicarbonate. You might not think of your kidneys as scientists, but they're performing acid-base chemistry 24 hours a day. Sometimes people underestimate how vital these organs are. You can survive with just one kidney, but if both fail, toxins quickly accumulate in the blood. That's why dialysis, an artificial filtering process, is such an important medical invention. A dialysis machine does what kidneys normally do. It cleans the blood, but it takes hours, several times a week. Your natural kidneys manage it continuously, effortlessly, and silently. If the body gave out awards, they'd probably get most underappreciated. Connected to the kidneys is the urinary system, but also related is the skin. Through sweat, your body also excretes waste, mainly water and salts, sometimes tiny amounts of urea. Sweating is the backup system, as well as a cooling mechanism. It's your body's way of saying, I may not be glamorous, but I'm efficient. And of course, the liver deserves a nod here too. While technically part of the digestive system, it plays a huge role in detoxification. It breaks down harmful substances, metabolizes drugs, and sends the leftovers to the kidneys or intestines for disposal. The liver is the lab, the kidneys are the cleanup crew, and the bladder is, well, the storage facility. An entire logistics chain, working invisibly. When you think about it, this system embodies the principle of balance. Everything you take in, food, drink, air, even medication, must eventually find its way out. Too much of anything, even water, can disrupt the delicate chemistry of your body. Your kidneys are the unsung regulators, making sure that life remains in equilibrium. And while the system's job isn't glamorous, it's one of the reasons you can wake up each morning without being poisoned by your own metabolism. It's the kind of success story that rarely makes headlines, but deserves one nonetheless. So, as you rest tonight, your kidneys will keep filtering, your bladder will quietly fill, and your body will continue the endless cycle of renewal. All without asking for applause and without ever needing a memo from you. Your skin is remarkable. It's your armor, your thermostat, your warning system, and your identity. All rolled into one. It's also heavier than you think. If you could weigh it, it would come in around 8 pounds. And if you could spread it out, please don't. It would cover about 2 square meters. That's roughly the size of a bed sheet. So yes, you live inside a biological bed sheet that keeps everything in and the world out. The skin has 3 main layers. The epidermis on top, the dermis underneath, and the subcutaneous tissue, the soft, fatty layer below. The epidermis is what you see in the mirror. It's made mostly of cells called keratinocytes, which continuously die and renew in a never-ending cycle of exfoliation. You lose about 500 million skin cells a day. A poetic way to say that part of you becomes household dust. So if you ever notice sunlight streaming through a room full of floating dust, you can take comfort in knowing that you're somewhat everywhere. The dermis, the layer beneath, is thicker and more alive. It contains blood vessels, nerves, sweat glands, and hair follicles. This is where sensation happens. Heat, cold, pain, pressure. It's also where collagen and elastin fibers give skin its strength and elasticity. Without them, we'd all look like deflated balloons. With them, we at least have the decency to age gracefully. The subcutaneous layer acts as insulation and padding. It keeps your body warm and cushions internal organs. It's basically nature's version of bubble wrap. The skin's most important role, of course, is protection. It guards against physical injury, ultraviolet light, and microorganisms. It also helps regulate body temperature through sweating and blood flow. When you're hot, blood vessels in the skin widen, allowing heat to escape. When you're cold, they constrict, keeping warmth inside. It's an automatic system, no manual input required. The fact that your body manages climate control better than most office buildings is something to be proud of. Sweat glands, though sometimes socially inconvenient, are vital to that system. You have between 2 and 5 million of them. They release water and salts to cool the body, but also excrete small amounts of waste. Sweating may not make you feel glamorous, but it's an elegant example of efficiency. A system that turns liquid into temperature regulation. Your skin also produces vitamin D when exposed to sunlight. This vitamin is essential for bone health, and while you can get it from food or supplements, your skin remains your most ancient solar panel. A little sunlight is good for you. Too much, and your skin reminds you who's in charge, usually in the form of a sunburn. The body's polite way of saying, "That was excessive." Then there's the matter of fingerprints. Those swirling ridges on your fingertips are unique to you. Even identical twins have different ones. They evolved partly for grip, but have ended up serving as one of the most personal identifiers in history. It's a little ironic that something you barely think about can be used to unlock both your phone and a crime scene mystery. Hair and nails are technically modifications of the skin. Hair provides insulation and sensory feedback. Even the tiniest hairs on your arm can detect changes in air movement. A survival feature from an era when noticing a breeze could mean spotting a predator. Nails, on the other hand, are useful tools. They protect fingertips and aid in gripping. They also serve as small, honest biographies of your health. Doctors can read deficiencies and illnesses in their color and texture. They're the footnotes of your physiology. And now, the senses. If the skin is your shield, the senses are your windows. You experience reality through 5 main ones: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Each is handled by specialized organs that translate physical stimuli into neural signals, which your brain then interprets. You don't really see with your eyes or hear with your ears. You perceive with your brain. The organs merely collect the data. Your brain is, in that sense, a sensory editor, deciding what makes the final cut. Sight begins in the eye. Light enters through the cornea, passes through the pupil, the black circle that widens or narrows depending on brightness, and is focused by the lens onto the retina. The retina contains millions of photoreceptor cells, rods for dim light and cones for color. These cells convert light into electrical signals that travel through the optic nerve to the brain. And yet, everything you see is upside down on your retina. Your brain quietly flips the image before showing it to you, proving that even your visual system needs post-production. Hearing, meanwhile, is the art of decoding air vibrations. Sound waves travel through the ear canal to the eardrum, which vibrates and moves 3 tiny bones in the middle ear: the malleus, incus, and stapes, or, if you prefer their friendlier names, the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. These bones amplify the sound and send it into the cochlea, a fluid-filled spiral lined with hair cells that translate vibrations into nerve impulses. Your brain then interprets those signals as sound. Music, laughter, the rustling of sheets, the occasional neighbor's lawnmower at 6 a.m. That last one triggers a very specific immune response. Mild irritation. Smell, or olfaction, is a more ancient sense. Molecules floating in the air bind to receptors in your nasal cavity, sending signals directly to the brain's olfactory bulb. Unlike other senses, smell connects straight to areas linked with emotion and memory, which is why a whiff of something familiar can instantly take you back years. Your brain is sentimental like that. Taste, or gustation, works closely with smell. The taste buds on your tongue can detect 5 main flavors: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, a savory taste. The combination of these, along with smell and texture, creates the complex experience we call flavor. Without smell, food tastes disappointingly flat. So when you have a cold and everything tastes like cardboard, that's not your imagination. It's physiology. And then there's touch. Touch is your oldest sense, the first to develop in the womb and the last to fade with age. Your skin contains millions of receptors sensitive to pressure, temperature, and pain. They send signals through the spinal cord to the brain, which interprets them not just as data, but as meaning. Warmth, comfort, warning, connection. Even a gentle hand on your shoulder can slow your heart rate and lower stress hormones. It's biology's way of proving that kindness has a measurable effect. Together, your senses weave the fabric of reality. They give texture to existence. The warmth of sunlight, the hum of conversation, the smell of rain on dry earth, the softness of a blanket at night. And your brain, quietly and constantly, turns those sensations into meaning. It's not a perfect system. You can mishear, missee, or misunderstand. But for something assembled from tissue and neurons, it does a remarkable job. So as you lie here now, with your skin cooling gently and your senses softening into the quiet of night, know that your body is still gathering data, measuring warmth, pressure, rhythm, and slowly handing it off to sleep. The senses never shut down entirely. They simply lower the volume so the world fades to a whisper, and the body can rest without losing touch completely. Your body is not a collection of parts. It's an orchestra. Each system plays its instrument. The lungs draw breath, the heart keeps rhythm, the brain conducts, and somehow it all stays in tune. It's easy to forget how remarkable that is. We tend to notice the body only when it malfunctions, when something hurts or slows or simply refuses to cooperate. But right now, as you lie here, thousands of processes are working in harmony to keep you comfortably unaware that they exist. Take a breath. That single inhale sets off a chain reaction. Your diaphragm contracts, pulling air into your lungs. Oxygen crosses into your blood, binds to red cells, travels to the heart, and is pumped to every corner of your body. All while carbon dioxide flows the other way, carried back for release. It's choreography on a microscopic scale, and it happens about 20,000 times a day, without your permission or even your awareness. If the brain is a conductor, the lungs and heart are the percussion section. Steady, dependable, and impossible to ignore when they stop. The brain itself is a network of billions of neurons, sending electrical signals at lightning speed, coordinating movement, thought, and emotion. But it's also a listener. It interprets signals from every sense: touch, taste, sight, sound, smell, and builds from them the story you call reality. Your brain doesn't just record your world, it invents it, moment by moment. In a way, perception is a collaboration between you and the universe. Half physics, half imagination. Then there's the skeleton, the quiet architecture beneath it all. It gives you shape, protects your organs, and produces blood cells in its marrow. It's easy to take bones for granted, but they're not lifeless structures. They're living tissue, constantly remodeled by specialized cells that break down old bone and build new. Even your skeleton renews itself, slowly, steadily, like a cathedral under eternal renovation. The muscles attach to those bones and provide motion. Every step, every blink, every smile. A coordinated effort of fibers contracting and releasing, fueled by chemistry and controlled by electricity. Even the act of speaking, of shaping a single word, involves dozens of muscles working together with the precision of a symphony playing pianissimo. And beneath the visible, your organs work in quiet cooperation. The digestive system extracts nutrients from food. The circulatory system distributes them. The endocrine system fine-tunes the process with hormones, and the excretory system tidies up afterward. The immune system stands guard, ever watchful, while the nervous system sends updates across the entire network, like an endless group chat. But thankfully, without emojis. If you zoomed in far enough, you'd see the tiniest unit of all, the cell. Each one is a microscopic factory, producing energy, storing information, and communicating through chemical signals. There are trillions of them, each performing its role, each aware, in a chemical sense, of what the others are doing. And somehow, out of this crowd of cells comes a single, unified experience. You. Scientists still don't fully understand how that happens. How consciousness, that flicker of awareness behind your eyes, emerges from the electrical chatter of neurons. But perhaps that's part of the beauty. Not every mystery needs to be solved before it can be appreciated. After all, you can marvel at a sunset without knowing the wavelength of light. And you can be grateful for your body without understanding every molecule inside it. When you think about it, your body is a story of cooperation, a story millions of years in the making. Every function, from your heartbeat to your thoughts, is the result of an unbroken chain of biological innovation, stretching back through countless generations of life. The oxygen in your blood was once part of ancient air. The calcium in your bones came from long-dead stars. The water in your veins has passed through oceans, glaciers, and clouds. You are, in the most literal sense, made of the universe, a walking archive of everything that ever was. And yet, for all that grandeur, your body remains beautifully humble. It doesn't demand attention. It just works. Quietly, tirelessly, repairing, adjusting, balancing. Every breath is a renewal. Every heartbeat, a reminder that life continues. Not through drama or noise, but through quiet persistence. As you drift toward sleep, your systems will slow but not stop. Your heart will beat a little slower. Your breath will deepen, your muscles will relax, and your brain will slip into the intricate dance of dreams, sorting memories, repairing connections, and resetting the day. Sleep is not absence. It's restoration, the body's most ancient medicine. So lie back. Let the orchestra of your body play on, softly, each system in harmony with the next. You don't need to conduct it. You don't even need to understand it. It's enough to know that it's there. Steady, intricate, and profoundly human. Somewhere deep inside, your cells are working, your neurons are whispering, and your heart, that quiet, loyal metronome, keeps time for another night. The body doesn't ask for gratitude, but it deserves a little awe. Good night.